Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And we see that we have everyone in attendance. So we have Tyler, Jim, and Dana, myself, Melina, and Ian here. The time is 9 o'clock, and we can start this Finance Committee meeting on August 18th. All right. Jumping into it, first thing in the morning here. Our first thing is our August sales tax report. As you can see, I like to look at that top line there that says year to date completed. And we are still above previous years year to date. And I'll go into this a little bit more in the budget forecasting for 2026, but just kind of wanted to point that out right now. And then if there's any questions on this sales tax report.
I don't have any questions. I just think it would be, I think, Jim, we had a great conversation at our last chamber meeting with some of the business owners, and then thinking like October chamber meeting, just kind of debriefing about what people's summer experience really is. Because again, I know, we hear reports at the state level that the summer tourism economy is softening a little bit. And so I think just really having an understanding of like, what do these numbers mean for our local community and local business owners? And what's that sort of context and narrative, as well as like, what does this mean for sales tax being collected online? So again, we know this doesn't give the complete picture of what our local businesses are doing. And so I'll look forward to like the October chamber meeting where we can really hear from people about.
Yeah, and I actually want to dive into that a little bit today in the 2026 budget forecasting, what that looks like as far as inflation goes and what that might be meaning for our businesses. So yeah, we can definitely touch on that. We do have Ann Chase here with the Housing Authority. And she wanted to talk through some of the ideas that have been thrown around for funding options and her evaluation of those funding options. And then something that the town is thinking of, one of my ideas at the very end. So Ann, I'll have you kick it off.
Great. Okay, so the Housing Authority was established in 2023. Since then, we've relied on grant funding for personnel and project expenses. Operating expenses like insurance, accounting, auditing, legal benefits is covered by the town of Silverton's general fund. And then grant matches and pre-development costs have been from San Juan County. We've asked for about $40,000 from San Juan County over the past few years. We've leveraged $1.1 million in grant funding from that 40,000. So
Oh, that should not be understated.
yeah, it's a big number. So my position is contracted through an intergovernmental agreement between the town and the housing authority. So my position is in the community development department, but I'm contracted to serve as the director of the Silverton Housing Authority, but all of my paychecks, benefits are located within the town. Right now, my salary is coming from Proposition 123 local planning capacity grant. That'll be started in this April. Will be funded through April 2026. We just adopted an ordinance to amend the land use code. So now it's Prop 123 eligible, and so we're getting a $50,000 bonus. So that'll help float the salary for a little bit beyond next April. We haven't identified any future funding sources for administrative expenses. So beyond next, let's say, summer of 2027. No, I feel like we're looking pretty good through December of 2026. There we go. So we need to establish a revenue source for this position. And we also have about 50 affordable housing units in pre-development. So revenue stream to keep those projects moving forward is important. And so I've put together an analysis of what other jurisdictions in Colorado are doing to establish revenue streams for affordable housing. And what we'll find, and what I found, is that our options are pretty limited because we're a statutory government and not home rule. So that puts a lot of guardrails on what we're able to do. And we've sort of put together 4 potential options, each have varying feasibility, applicability, and impact. So one of the main funding sources are for affordable housing is short-term rentals, and that is through a variety of different ways. The most impactful is through an ad valorem tax. So that's a tax levied on certain goods or services at the time of purchase. And that's based on a rate, so it's like a sales tax. Telluride has a tax of 2.5% on all short-term rental sales. Ouray is at 15%, and Crested Butte is at 7.5%. You must be home ruled in order to adopt it, or a multi-jurisdictional housing authority has that power. However, it has to be voter approved. So this would be a ballot initiative. So our implementation options in Silverton would be to establish a multi-jurisdictional housing authority and then propose the short-term rental tax as a ballot initiative.
And this tax gets levied at the point of rental, right? On each night of rent. Gotcha.
Or each booking.
Yeah, each booking.
And we can get more into what that would look like, but I'm just going to keep going through other options. Another option would be a regulatory fee. And this is not a licensing fee. It's a fee that helps offset the impacts of short-term rentals.
To staff time.
Yes, but you could turn it into an affordable housing fund. So Telluride and Breckenridge have done this. Breckenridge has been sued over it. The ruling was not public, so I don't know what happened, but it's kind of it's a stretch to say that we need to collect this fee in order to fund a housing position or housing projects. But communities have done it. Pagosa has done it. So it's possible. It is more of a contentious option.
It's open to critique.
But we also can't do it because we're not home ruled. So that is kind of not an option. And then a licensing fee for short-term rentals. We do have this for vacation rentals. And it can't be used specifically for affordable housing programs. It goes into like the community development. The community development department, but it can't necessarily fund affordable housing initiatives. So any increase would help like bolster the community development department. However, looking at, I did a quick fee analysis of our surrounding jurisdictions or similar jurisdictions, and Silverton's initial license fee, renewal fee, and waitlist fee are all higher than the surrounding jurisdictions with the exception of Telluride. And so it would be hard to make an argument to increase that, to just be able to justify that increase.
And do we have in here what revenue we collect annually from those fees?
Yeah,
It's later, isn't it? We can get to there. That's fine.
We're almost there.
Oh, yeah, budget impact. Yeah, I see. Okay.
32,000 about.
Yeah, thanks. Okay.
Okay, so that sort of wraps up short-term rentals as a funding source. Another option that people have talked about, both on the board and in the community, is a vacancy tax. In Colorado, no jurisdictions to date have implemented a vacancy tax. Some have considered it, and some are proposing it in future elections. Steamboat Springs is going to ballot this November. If it passes, it'd be the first residential vacancy tax in Colorado. Boulder is considering it. They've postponed it until 2026. Then in Crested Butte, voters rejected it in 2021. It would be extremely ambitious for us to take on, especially considering how limited staff capacity is. And I think it'll just be interesting to see what happens in Steamboat.
And we are able to do it.
I don't
being
actually
statutory.
know if we can. That one I couldn't figure out.
I mean, can't we put it to the voter? But yeah, I don't know.
If it's simply a tax, then we should be able to put it to the voters. I think,
But then why can't we do the
I don't think, we've looked at the vacancy tax before though, right? And I feel like that was something that we can do, that we were allowed to do. But I would add on, I don't think there's an appetite for a vacancy tax, and I'm not sure that would pass, but.
Okay. What were we gonna say, Gloria?
I just want to make sure that I'm right in what I'm going to say.
I do know that the Colorado Association of Ski Towns, CAST, is working on sort of statewide legislation, and they have been for the past few years. It's always unsuccessful. Yeah, I can't remember if we can do it, but.
Well, and there's questions on, can Silverton as a statutory town put it to the voters in addition to, is it legal in the state of Colorado?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that seems to be why we've kind of not strongly considered it, because it hasn't been successfully implemented in any other communities. Yeah.
Another tool is real estate transfer fees. This is only applicable in jurisdictions that were grandfathered in under when was that? 1992. Under Tabor. So there are some jurisdictions that whenever property sells, there is a transfer fee that the government collects and puts it into an affordable housing fund, but we can't do that.
And we can't do that regardless of whether you're home rule or not.
Right.
Only the municipalities that have been grandfathered in can do it.
Exactly. Again, that Colorado Association of Ski Towns is still working on changing that. But that's not an option. Something that would be an option would be putting a transfer fee on our Silverton Housing Authority homes.
Which feels like so. Yeah.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it. Because these homes they already have an appreciation cap on it. So the amount of equity that owners are realizing is limited.
Yeah.
However,
It's extracting fee from the wrong source, but yes.
if we in the future continue to use our procedures of selling these homes, we are avoiding a real estate
Agent.
brokerage
Yeah.
fee, which is significant.
Mhm.
And if you think about, it takes about 2 months of work to sell a home.
Mhm.
I mean, it is like a service that we are providing.
Right. You'd be funding the housing authority doing that transaction as
Mhm.
opposed to a real estate agent doing that transaction. Yeah, I get that.
So it's something to
And-
consider.
So would you collect that on the initial sale or only on a resale?
Probably on all of them.
Okay,
And-
because yeah, otherwise it would, you know, there's just no guarantee of any money coming in after the initial sale.
Right. It's not a
People might keep hopefully people keep them for a long time.
Right. It would be like a influx of like $1,000 every couple of years.
Yeah.
So
reliable.
if it's worth it, I don't know, but this is something that we can talk about at a future housing authority meeting, because we will be talking about sort of the terms of the covenants going on the Anvil townhomes. And I can put together like examples of what percentage fee that could look like. So those are the options. At the end of the memo under staff recommendations, I talk through what our options are, what the impact could be, things to consider, and we can dive into them, or I can open up to questions. Ultimately, what I'm looking for is direction on which funding mechanism to further research or pursue. And then I don't know, Gloria,
Yeah.
to hop in here.
And then the one thing I have been exploring is looking at potentially utilizing Mullis Lake revenues to help offset the director position. And so it's set up as a special revenue fund and not an enterprise fund right now. It acts as an enterprise fund, but it has different legal implications on transferring funds from a special revenue fund. So I'm still digging into that and I don't have that answer, but what it might look like is readopting that fund with a stipulation in there that a certain percentage or a certain amount would be transferred to the housing authority fund every year to help support that. With the increase of fees at Mullis, that is the only fund that's really been healthy throughout its tenure, and growing. So we have about a 300 and something $1,000 ending fund balance that's predicted to go up to 400,000 this year. And so it is growing. And I'm not sure all of that can be used up at Wallace. And so it's an option. We wanted to feel it out with this committee on if it's a viable option to continue to pursue. I do have a question to Clayton and an accountant on how we could do that. But it can be done. So I'm just trying to think through that. And of course, I'd put some analysis in on like how much we collected, how much we anticipate collecting going forward, and then potentially taking a portion of that, maybe it's 60,000 a year or 70 or something like that, then back into the housing authority. So wanted to kind of gauge that with you all and see where you all, how that feels.
I don't think it's a crazy idea to use
something that generates, an asset that generates revenue for the town should fund other town priorities. That doesn't seem crazy to me at all. I mean, communities would do that all the time. I don't think over at, Uray Hot Springs, they only use that revenue for hot springs improvements. I don't know. But I could see towns using assets that they have to generate revenue for other priorities. That seems reasonable to me. So I don't philosophically have a problem with it.
Could you, could you please reset the sound?
Thank you.
Sorry, it's getting a little tinny. Thank you.
All right, is that better?
Yes.
Much better. Thank you.
I just said, I don't philosophically have an issue with using a town asset that generates revenue to fund other priorities in town. That makes perfect sense to me.
No, I agree. I think that's one of the reasons that, we have it. I would think, especially if it does more than just support itself.
I agree. I just don't want to fall in the trap of where we end up rating the fund so that it can't stand on its own 2 feet.
Yeah, I think that's, I think it involves just a discussion of, okay, what are our top capital priorities at Moelis? And I think we've outlined some of those in the capital improvement plan. And, when we've done prioritization exercises with the community over the last 5 years, affordable housing was the top priority for just like lots of things. And then even when we asked people about, well, where should we invest funding as far as trails, the perimeter trail? What else did we ask them that time? Perimeter trails, Moelis Lake improvements, pavilion, and people at that point clearly voted for like trails. So I feel like we could potentially use some of that, but I agree with your caution, Jim, that we wouldn't want to just completely raid that and not have reserves for future things we want to do at Moelis. One question I had, because I think about funds kind of in terms of, well, you can move money around. So if recognizing that we have one of the higher licensing fees for short-term rentals, and that really can only go to the community development fund category because that's the department that sort of oversees our short-term rental licensing. Is there anything that precludes us from continuing to partially fund the affordable housing position through the general fund? Like we can still do that. Yeah, we can allocate our resources in that way. In the same way, if we decided we needed to add another position at town hall, we would fund it from the general fund. If it relates to public works or facilities and park, it might be from some of our enterprise funds. But I guess the thing that comes to my mind is, and I'd be curious, the budget impact as we talk about this over the next couple months is like, okay, if we say that the vacation rental revenue budget was 32,000 last year, we could either keep that as it is because we recognize we're one of the highest in the region, or we could increase it. Then does that allow us to slightly modify the community development budget to say, hey, we're still putting a portion of that budget in that department from the general fund towards affordable housing as well? Like we can't use the vacation rental fee increase or existing revenue to directly support affordable housing, but it can support community development, which means we could shift some other sort of unallocated community development funds to affordable housing.
Yeah, that could work.
It's fungible, as my economist would say. It's fungible.
It would be fungible.
That's my least favorite.
Just means you can move it around. People like to think.
I like what it means. I just don't like the word.
It's like moist. Because I'm not thinking maybe the whole amount, because we need more than 32,000. We probably need more than 50,000 from Moelis. But if you did some combination where the community development department is still supporting benefits and a portion of the salary, and Mullis is supporting another portion of the salary and department.
Do we have a
And-
ballpark of what we would need?
For the salary alone,
Just in general.
yeah, for the salary alone, it would be, I mean, and this is the other part is that this salary has been steady because it's been grant funded. So there's been no COLA increases or any increases at all. So it's at 70,000 right now.
With that includes benefits?
That does not include benefits.
Yeah. And that's another 12, 10, 12, 8.
Yeah, so it's about 15
Okay.
on top of that.
But then we're also looking, I mean, in here, I think you have, Anne, that like, we still have no cash, like there's no additional funding beyond grant funding that we get to fund projects.
Right.
I know all of the options that I've presented are like for one staff person, and that doesn't give us any capital,
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't grow the fund.
buy anything or
Yeah.
build anything.
Yeah.
Or
But
manage the
it
grant.
allows us to manage what we currently have.
Right,
So if we
right.
want to stay at this level,
Yeah.
that's our investment.
I would be very interested in exploring. So things we could do without any real policy changes beyond Mullis. And without establishing a separate revenue stream or additional tax or fee. Could be a combination of using Mullis to help support affordable housing at a certain level and potentially funding some as a line item in community development. I'd be curious what that combo would look like. It seems like the real question before us, because like the vacancy tax, I think that it could be a little bit popular. I'm curious, Tyler, that if we decided we were gonna do that, we did it in a November election, I would be curious if it wouldn't have a lot of support, because I hear all the time from people when we talk about housing is, well, what about all these vacant homes? And how can we kind of turn the market on those to either get them to, be filled or collect a little bit of revenue from them, or make it less attractive for them to be empty. But I feel a little bit reluctant being the guinea pig for that, considering it has some legal challenges. So to me, the only other really viable revenue source that we could pursue would be the ad valorem tax by becoming a multi-jurisdictional housing authority. Or that's really it, right?
That's it.
That's really it.
And isn't that much easier than going to ballot?
We still would have to go
We
to
still would
ballot.
have to go to ballot.
So we'd have to first become a multi-jurisdictional housing authority, then put it to
And-
the vote.
So we have to get buy-in from the county, or did we?
Which
Were
the
there
county
any other
said they would.
options? I mean, yeah, but
I think there's potential to reopen up that conversation. I think there's high potential with the demonstration of capacity, with the success, with if the town were to really show, look, we're funding this position in this way. Like, I'd be curious about some combo where maybe we stabilize the funding for the position. So like Anna's set and secure, we have this position set. We do that maybe through some combination of Mullis and community development budget. I don't know, Corey, we could talk more about that. And then it seems like we need to have the conversation of should we pursue the multi-jurisdictional housing authority? Because it gives us a few more options.
I think when we're thinking about the multi-jurisdictional housing authority for the purpose of creating the short-term rental ad valorem tax, I would strongly recommend having a market analysis, a fee analysis done on that tax as sort of like a task before we establish the housing authority or the multi-jurisdictional housing authority. Because if we find that like our economy actually can't support this tax and voters wouldn't support this tax, then we would have gone through this whole process of creating a multi-jurisdictional housing authority and still be in the same place that we were before, where we don't have funding.
Well, I think there's other reasons to create the multi-jurisdictional housing authority, right? There were other benefits we were
There are.
able to apply for different pots of money. It's more
Yes.
than just this one reason, was my understanding of or you know. So I'm not sure that this is the only reason to go for the multi-jurisdictional housing authority, if I'm remembering correctly. The other thing, though, I was thinking is I just wanting to do a study to, see if this is feasible. But if that $35,000 can go towards that salary for another year too, I don't like what's better long term? Because we could do the study and find it's not feasible, and then we're just $35,000 or $25,000, whatever it is, but that money's just gone.
Anne or Gloria, could you guys give us a little bit more info on what would be our other benefits of pursuing multi-jurisdictional housing authority?
I'll have to pull up that memo again real quick, but this was the biggest one, honestly, was the ad valorem tax.
Okay, so when we talked about it, providing
like
access to
funding authority that we would get. But this
just to be
was,
able to pay that back.
yeah, this was like the short-term rental tax is the major authority. Like funding authority or revenue stream, I guess.
Are there certain, have you foreseen or seen that there are certain grant opportunities that aren't available because we're jurisdictional versus multi-jurisdictional?
No,
Municipal?
it's always like you just have to be a governmental entity, which the housing authority as it is.
Yeah.
So no, grant funding doesn't change from what I've seen.
And that was the other thing of creating, when I first was pushing on a multi-jurisdictional housing authority, it was because we wanted to take on debt for a residential project. When we found out we could do that as a single municipal housing authority, we shifted and just did it that way. But we did give up that ad valorem tax. I'm looking through my memo on the other things that I had presented on how if we were to go multi-jurisdictional, and that was a development impact fee.
Oh, right. So we could charge a fee at the point of a new build
Yes,
or a new subdivision or something like that.
right.
That was another.
And that's the other big one that was in that kind of benefits list.
And we can't do that being a jurisdictional housing authority or a municipal housing authority.
Right, but I'm not sure if the county couldn't do that without the town.
And implement it within town
Right.
limits for anything.
That's what I'm not sure of on that one.
Gotcha.
But it does need to be in conjunction with the county or the county alone. I'm not sure.
So what you're saying is it's possible that the county could implement a development impact fee outside of being a multi-jurisdictional housing authority?
Well, I would ask that question if it is.
That'd be
I'm not
good.
saying it's possible. I'm just saying if that is an option. But that's definitely an option if we were a multi-jurisdictional.
You can levy a property tax and a sales or use tax out of the multi-jurisdictional housing authority.
So we could put a mill on those too, like we have right now. That is increasing taxes.
Yeah.
That's
for
still
everyone.
for voters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I think we all know that taxes of all sorts are high in our.
I think property tax and sales tax would be a hard pill, would just be really hard for people to get behind. The vacancy tax, I feel like could potentially have a bit more traction. But I know the county itself already is talking about, they've taken a really big hit based on how the state is calculating property taxes and doing property tax relief, which affects their county budget. They're putting something to the voters probably about that. So, yeah. Jim, what are you thinking? You had some thoughts.
I don't believe in the raising taxes right now. I'd like to see if us try to remedy this internally before we affect the public. I think we've done that enough already over the past 12 to 18 months with increased fees and whatnot.
Wise words.
And that's why I asked about Mullis campground, because I think there's enough money generated over there with our new increased fee schedule that we can possibly fund this, a good portion of it, if not the whole thing.
Yeah, and I can bring you.
Obviously, that's an ambitious statement, but I do think we can. I think we can pay for at least half this with what we're doing at Mullis.
And I can bring you all back an analysis of that and kind of break down the numbers at our next finance committee meeting, if that would work for y'all. Just to kind of project out on what that might look like moving forward.
And putting it in the context of some of our other like desired or needed or necessary capital improvement.
Up at Mullis, yeah.
Yeah, up at Mullis too. Yeah. I think those are good words, Jim. I think I agree with you that I'd like to see us try to fund the position with funding we have, and then just keep kind of the conversation going about what are other revenue sources. And I am very curious to see what happens with the vacancy tax with Steamboat Springs, or with, you know, like kind of what happens with other communities, what happens with the Colorado Association of Ski Towns, if any sort of progress is made on that level. I think that would be my preference, is sort of keep the conversation open, kind of keep the conversation open with the county of kind of like, hey, if the opportunity presents itself and this seems like a good fit for all of us, are you guys still open to having that discussion about moving forward as a multi-jurisdictional housing authority, but maybe not taking those administrative steps yet? I don't know. What do you two think?
I'll jump in. I know that in the past we've had those discussions with the county. They didn't say no. It was the administrative side of it that they wanted to keep at the town level so that they wouldn't have to, I just bluntly say, they just didn't want to deal with it. But I know it's a lot to take on for Willie and his team. I think in that, if you structure it that way, it's probably more palatable. I also know from the planning commission meeting that we had, I think 2 meetings ago, and might have been there, we discussed, I think it was $10,000 a lot, $7,000 a lot being sold in the county, and that money would go towards the affordable housing here in town.
I think it was 10% per
Is it
sale.
10%? I apologize.
I think so.
That'd be a fee.
I think the 10% came out to like
Oh, so-
7,500 or 10,000. That's why
Transfer.
it was. Yeah,
What was it called, Jim? Was it an impact?
Impact fee?
I don't remember what we called it.
That's why I'm curious if that's what we can, if they can do
They
that
can
on
do
their
that because
own
we're-
without.
And within town lots.
Right.
Yeah. So
And
it seems
it's-
like, yeah,
And
go
it's
ahead.
much easier to apply that fee with the sale or exchange of a property than it is to go through the whole process.
Mhm.
If the county can
Correct.
levy that fee, right, and they can take it. I mean,
Oh,
if we're not part of a multi-jurisdictional housing authority, then that's also, they can do what they want with it. They don't have to share it with us.
unless we had some sort of SGA or some agreement that
Mhm.
specified, like, we're doing this in this capacity. Because, I mean, if you're thinking down the road, there's the potential for a number of potential projects or ideas in the county related to affordable housing, right? Like, an economic development. So this isn't necessarily just the 2 to 3 year time frame. I mean, we're trying to fund this sustainably for the next tranche of projects. But I think we can keep moving towards that collaborative relationship in regards to what can happen both in town and in county.
And
So-
just, I think, making sure it's collaborative and that there's an understanding that, yeah, that it's, hopefully something like that could be shared, or, we could at least, yeah, join forces on the, because, and my only thing is, just from where I sit in some other areas, is just because the county collects money doesn't mean they're going to spend it. And it doesn't mean they're going to spend it or share it with other services or entities.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. So, it sounds like there's general thought, I mean, we haven't heard your opinion, Tyler, on how you feel about trying to fund at least the affordable housing position with funds we have. I heard that from Jim. I think the Moss Fund makes sense to me. Tyler, did you have any other thoughts or oppositions on kind of that approach in terms of this budget cycle?
no, I think that's a great idea. I think it just looks, the other options, obviously, they look not only difficult, but just not possible based on the fact that we're not a home rule. So, and some of the other hurdles. So I think this is the right way to go. And also we have increased fees a lot over the past, as Jim said, so over the last 18 months. So I think if we can pay for it with what we've already collected, I think that's a smart move, at least in the short term.
And so it seems like the questions we're asking is, for the future, can a development impact or a fee in lieu or development impact fee be implemented by the county without being jurisdictional? And was there another question we're asking? My question just for budgeting is, could some of the funding in the community development department be shifted a little bit? So that department funds a little bit of this, and Moelis could fund a little bit of it. But maybe that puts too much pressure on that department, so. It sounds like there was not a lot of support for doing a study right now. Was that the sense it's getting?
And that funding could be a request to the county commissioners through the Affordable Housing Fund to help us weigh the pros and cons of considering a multi-jurisdictional housing authority.
Do you think that would be would you strongly advocate for doing that analysis or study?
I think if we were thinking about a multi-jurisdictional housing authority at all, at any point in the future, that study would be very important. And ultimately, like, the county would have to approve it because we'd be requesting that funding.
Yeah.
So it's sort of up to the county whether or not they want to fund that study.
Sure, but we could request that funds for that or something else. And so if we're doing that, we might be giving up requesting for something else.
Right. I mean, maybe it's just a conversation to have with the county.
Right. Because we don't, yeah.
But is this a study that can be done with capacity issues or just?
Yeah, we'd hire a consultant to do all the work.
Consultants.
I'm starting to think, Jim, we need to be in the consulting business.
I was just thinking we're all in the wrong business.
Okay, so it sounds like the next meeting, I'll bring you all back an analysis of Moelis and general fund combination. Continue to fund the director's position. And also looking at focusing on funding the position with the revenue that we have. So starting there. I'll also kind of show you where our current funds go and how we supplement the rest with the sales tax. And looking at that, how that would go out, because I do want to do this year a 5-year projection in our budget. So this will just kick off that 5-year projection for Mullis. And then we have some unanswered questions about county doing an impact fee, what they're doing with their fee in lieu, and then looking at possibly vacancy tax, and that's further on down the road. But for immediate, we would bring back that analysis on Mullis and general fund combination.
Great. And Gloria, if you say, hey, the community development fund can't absorb any of this, like that's a no-go.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say that now even. Or just suggest, it doesn't even have to be the community development fund. It's all, again, it's a big pot of money. It's fungible. So, yeah, so.
There's that word again.
Yeah.
Hey, I do have a question or request. Reading that article out of Breckenridge saying that their lodging is down 16 to 18%, which is spot on from everything I've been reading and folks I've been talking to around the state. How is our lodging tax?
Our lodging tax, I'd have to look at the county. So we only have our lodging fee at the.
How's our lodging fee?
So I'll look at the county portion. And I mean, our lodging fee is on track as far as I can tell. The weird part about our lodging fee is that we don't ask them to, and I'm pulling that up right now. They pay at different times.
Yeah.
They're not, like if you see it through June, that might not be reflective of the actual through June.
Right.
But you can do like, here, I'll pull this up and show you real
Right.
quick.
Some people will pay multiple months at a time, and so it'll take a little while to catch up. Some people don't pay it until
The end of the year.
the end of the year. And so really, it's hard to tell.
It's not a great predictor.
It's not.
Okay.
So I'll just show you here. This is our lodging fee here. And you can see like it's below it. There we go. You can see the year-to-date actuals for 2024. And then year-to-date for 2025. We're pretty much on track. You'll see 2023, we only had 11,000 in there, probably because not a lot of people had paid their lodging fee yet. So this tells me we are on track on collecting those fees. We weren't able to get the July actuals in this packet. They're being finished up today. Our accountant took a little vacation, so we are managing that. But
I'm just thinking about other revenue sources
yeah.
that can be.
But as far as, I mean, we can look back at Willie's last packet to see the lodging tax.
Because the lodging tax would be paid at more regular intervals or not necessarily?
It would be.
Yeah. At least quarterly.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to find his last meeting.
I think this is where the study would be helpful
Right.
and important. Because if we're saying, well, lodging rates are already going down, like how would increasing the total cost of lodging
Help.
help or hurt
Yeah.
like that sale? Like, can the economy support an increased fee, specifically on short-term rentals? But it would be considered like predicting and considering the impacts of that.
Yeah, right. If people are already saying a nightly rental. Yeah,
Mhm.
it just might put further pressure on that portion of our economy.
And he doesn't have the lodging in here. He just has our sales tax. So yeah, that could be included in our analysis as well.
Jim, did you have a specific question in there or mainly related to like, are we seeing a downturn?
Well, a little bit of both. But I was really thinking about just other ways of assisting in the funding of affordable housing.
Yeah.
Seeing what was in that fund.
Mhm.
It is not in his packet. I
Okay.
don't think so. He's
Mhm.
got the others labeled. There's one that's not labeled and I'm wondering if that's it. 'Cause it does have tourist promotion as part of it, affordable housing. This must be theirs. So,
Because the lodging tax is what?
2%?
Yeah, it's 2% and a portion of it support, where does that 2% go? Is that
Tourist
portion?
promotion, affordable housing and enhanced experience is on here, but I know that there's a
So,
childcare.
yeah, that's what the voters approved.
Yeah.
A couple.
Childcare is the affordable housing.
Okay.
Affordable housing, childcare, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Hey.
All right. So we will bring back more
Thanks for that
analysis
analysis, that's helpful.
you all at the next meeting. So we can kind of get on top of this before we get to budget season. Well, we're in budget
Well,
season.
and before you leave, Ann, I just wanted to say, and Jim, you might remember this from being in Glenwood Springs, but like, we talked so much about all of these things. And I feel like I just want to acknowledge, even though we don't have that work plan that we put up in front of us, like, so much progress. And I think having you in this position and the projects that you're working on and seeing the like momentum that you've had just further demonstrates like the importance of the work that you're doing and the impact you're making. So thank you. We're getting there.
Thanks. All right, so these next couple memos probably all kind of bleed together, honestly, but I tried to separate them out. Just thinking, what I wanted to double gut check with you all is kind of the forecasting considerations as I draft our new budget for 2026. So reading the Legislative Council staff's 2025 economic and revenue forecast, looking like, we've seen an increase in sales tax, but that might be leveling out here soon. It does still equate to like the inflation rate. So I did want to kind of bring your eyes to this inflation projections. And one of the things that I do want to harp on is that while inflation has increased sales tax, businesses are not seeing the same increase because their costs have increased and their profit margins have decreased. So I just really want to kind of point that out. It's not a litmus test of how our businesses are doing, but if we are trying to keep up as well with salaries, with the cost of providing our services. So this graph looks really good, but it also takes into consideration that the inflation has perpetuated that increase over time. And looking at 2026, what's our sales tax number? What are we going to predict? We predicted 1.6 million, I believe, for this year, and we might be passing that. And so where do you guys feel comfortable with that? I mean, sales tax is like 40% of our revenue source. So predicting it's been difficult. It's fluctuating. And what I don't want to do is over predict and then we don't have the funds in case there's emergency. But under predicting also restricts our budget. And so we can't prioritize things that if we under predict. And we did that last year. We under predicted a little last year, which is prudent and fine. And we need to be saving for our overall emergency funds and capital improvements. But kind of wanted to put this all on your radar. So thinking about the economy next year, knowing that inflation is predicted to be around 2.5% for this year, potentially more next, or potentially leveling out next year is what I've been reading. And then some considerations that I've put on there is our water and sewer rates. So accounting for those and having those discussions here soon. I did include in your packet the McLean's rate study, stating that we do need to increase our sewer, our EQRs for sewer by $17 per billing cycle or $8 per month. And then the consideration of COLA and those are some that I'm kind of grappling with as I go into drafting out our new budget. So where do you think we'll end up in 2026? Needing a collective brain here.
Let me ask one clarifying question. So with inflation going up and recognizing that our costs also have gone up, we're still predicting that net revenue number that you have on page 11 for 2025.
Jumping around.
Yeah, I'm jumping a little bit because I just kind of
Yeah.
want to get a sense of like, okay, we're thinking about sales tax and we're thinking about its effects, but to me, it also relates to
Mhm.
what we predict for our spending as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was your question?
My question was,
I'm on the right page.
so on page 11, it says the 2025 budget predicts a net revenue over expenses of 338,000.
Yep.
And we're on track to receive those funds. So even if we've been affected by inflation, we still expect to have net revenue.
Well, we made significant cuts last year
Yeah.
to this budget to get those funds. So I wouldn't
And we're on
say,
track. It's
we're
not like
on
we've
track
seen
for that, yeah.
inflation and expenses outpacing what we hoped.
no, we anticipated this.
Okay.
And we anticipated to have to save so that we do have
Yeah.
a healthy ending fund balance.
Yeah. All right, so back to.
And so my gut was to budget the same we did this year as far as revenue goes and 1.6 million. But you'll see on here that we've exceeded that since 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing that I've noticed the past, couple of years is just because the state is trending one way, I don't know if we're always just a few years behind the curve. And so we're not matching up, what we might be seeing statewide or what it is. But, I read obviously Melody's article that she sent to us. And then you look at our sales tax receipts and it doesn't match, right? We're still exceeding last year except for 1 month
Yeah, that's
in
correct.
collections this year. So, I think that we've always been, since I've been on the finance committee and on the board, pretty conservative about projecting the following year's collected sales tax. And I think that's probably smart. I just think that we should, maybe, I don't think we should be overly conservative. I don't know if it's just we're a year or two behind the curve or if we're just kind of an outlier, or if we've just been discovered and all these other mountain towns have already been long discovered and so they do fluctuate more. But I don't think since I've been on the board, we've seen a decrease in sales tax collections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I am curious what this year looks like for people. Because I think, Tyler, I have the same kind of qualm as you of I look at our sales tax collections, but then I also have people come to my coffee or to hear people online or hear people send us emails, and the local business experience is not quite that same. And again, our budget is not the same as our local business economy's budget because we collect online sales tax as well. So we should budget based on what we think the actuals are. And it just seems really hard for us to make determinations of what we think the actuals are going to be. And I am wondering, are people contracting their spending in general? And if they're contracting their spending in general, will that affect online sales tax collection as well as, local business sales tax collection? Or are we prudent to say, hey, we have been trending this way for so long, but Jim, I'd be really curious your perspective, because I've heard comments in the chamber meetings and elsewhere from folks of like, well, we're kind of back to pre-pandemic levels of sort of revenue and business. And so should we as a board assume that the pandemic, post-pandemic increase is tapering off, or that it's a new normal? That's kind of the philosophical question we have to answer.
No, that's a good point. I will make a slight correction. We are pre-pandemic as in figures for volume of people, but definitely not revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue's gone up because everyone has had to increase their prices across the board, whether it's transportation, delivery, just employment. All these costs. I can tell you that my spending online has gone through the roof. It's just easier.
Yeah.
And I've had to adjust myself to do this. And I know that I'm just one of many.
Yeah.
So I'm siding with Tyler. I think Tyler's right. I think we need to adjust our mindset and know that regardless of the experience of our local business individual, we are still going to have a certain volume of revenue coming in, and we need to plan accordingly. And that means adjusting ourselves up a little bit to know that we have a little bit more availability for these funds.
Well, and if our budget of expenses that we're considering, it seems like something that maybe we've done in the past. If we said, well, our budget for expenses, inflation has gone up. We need COLA, we need raises, we need this new staff. We're dealing with all these things. We have this extra thing we need to do, this thing we need to fund. And so we have kind of increased for expenses, and we also need to acknowledge, well, that also is supported by an increase in revenue.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can just personal experience through the hotel, occupancy is down. That's just matter of fact, it is. But our revenue is up over last year simply because we had to raise our prices.
Yeah. Right.
So it looks, hey, great, you're in the black. But if you're looking at it realistically in a true comparison, our occupancy is down.
Yeah. People versus rates.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do believe that we're reaching a threshold that the average traveler, I mean, you see them packing sack lunches, you see them, folks are not buying those big meals or staying in the more fancy lodging as they did in the past.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe, I mean, we put out 1.6 over the past, maybe something like 1.7 or 1.65 is a more conservatively inflated number.
I mean, I think this year, I think we're going to hit 1.8, just like we did last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I mean,
if we were to say 1.75 to 1.85, I'd be very okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would side. This is a time where I would definitely, like I said, agreeing with Tyler. I think revenues are going to come in higher than we had expected.
Mm-hmm.
For all the multitude of reasons, and we should adjust ourselves accordingly. And if we want to go and do those fun little projects, now's the time.
Mm-hmm.
Or just build a war chest.
Well, and it might be the time that we are having to dip into our coffers to fund some of those things because the state and federal funding is less.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so
agree with.
the momentum on some things might need to come from our budget as opposed to others. I think the hard thing for folks to understand or to appreciate too is that we're increasing some of these projections, but we also are talking about what it means for what our costs mean for our rates for water and sewer. And it's hard, I think, for folks to sometimes separate the general fund and the enterprise funds, right? That we're having to kind of play this balance around. The enterprise funds have certain fixed costs and they still have to be paid for by rates. And the general fund is separate and has to pay for kind of all these other things.
Well, I have a whole conversation on that.
Well, let's have it. So I'm hearing increasing 1.7, 1.75.
Okay.
I feel a little reluctant going to 1.8 because I sense this, I think we'll hit 1.8 this year, but well, I don't know then. I don't know. Maybe there'll be more certainty next year and it'll be fine. I don't know. I'm in a period of,
I would say higher. That's just me.
Mhm.
Because this is the fluctuation period. If things are gonna start to plateau on a federal level and a possible state level, we'll see it this year
Mhm.
or towards the end of this year.
Yeah, so you think like a 1.8
That's what I'm thinking.
feels reasonable.
T, what do you think?
Yeah, I understand where Dana's coming from because it is, a lot can happen. 3 months or 5 months, but and by next summer, a lot can have happened. But again, I think budgeting for what we collected this year and not really exceeding that. I mean, again, I just based on the last 5 years of collections, I don't think that that's too risky.
Well, and we have
so-
to keep the point that we really contracted last year. We were fiscally pretty conservative. We built up decent reserves for that, potential of an event, a wildfire, the train can't run, people are not coming, et cetera. And so we got ourselves into kind of a healthy position to weather a potential catastrophe or problem. And so maybe then predicting on a more similar to last year level gives our community a bit more freedom to fund the things. And that gets the question we'll have to have next is sort of like, what does our community want and need? What is important for the success of our community for what we budget for? So I'm hearing a 1.8. Does that freak you out?
No, I really appreciate this conversation because sitting there and putting in that number is very intimidating. And I just wanted to have a conversation with you all on what we feel comfortable with. And I feel comfortable with 1.8.
Yeah. And what we decide here drives much of our future budget
Yes.
discussion. So.
Yeah, and I definitely just wanted us all to kind of be in agreement, because then, yeah, it does, it affects everything else going forward. And then I did put in the water and sewer rates in there, and this is a conversation that I want to bring to the utility committee as well. But there will need to be another increase, soon, so that we can pay off our collection system loan that we are currently undergoing, so. Just wanted to put that on your radar. And the COLA is definitely on your radar, so.
And we'll get the compensation study going into budget season.
Yeah, so she did send me that right on Friday. I was hoping to chat with you all on it today, but I did have some notes for her. So we're kind of going back and forth right now. And hopefully that'll be done by the next meeting. So this kind of rolls, so thank you for that. And that's really what I was looking for, is that number of where we're comfortable. And I'm comfortable with the 1.8. It's what we're probably going to exceed this year. And it's what we received in the previous year. So, all right, moving on to nonprofit requests, contingency funds, capital outlay. So I kind of lumped it all together because this is a policy decision on where we want to spend our funds. So we did create a formalized process of nonprofit requests in 2022. And this really was to make it fair and weigh all the nonprofits at once. When I started, nonprofits would come in randomly and receive some of the contingency funds. but wasn't really a fair process at that point. So we formalized it, but we did that without prioritizing funds for it, a dedicated funding source, and it can conflict with other priorities, including staff. So in preparing for the budget, last year, we said that we would maybe address it in the spring. The spring was very volatile as far as what was going on the federal, state level and funding. So that conversation just didn't happen. So now I would like to bring it back up on kind of where we're at. So the estimated fund balance for the general fund, and I lay this out in the memo, in 2024 was 652,000. And then what we actually got in after it was audited was 926,000. So we have some funds, we had more funds than we had anticipated. And that's subject to, so let me share my screen while I talk through this, because I feel like if I just talk through it, you might not follow. Does that help if I share my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll go here. That up. Yeah, okay. So yeah, just kind of talking through this. So the 2025 budget, revenue over expenditures, we were hoping for $300,000 in the black, and we're really on track to receive those funds. So our new estimated fund balance for the general fund in 2025, as of this moment, and this is subject to change with any kind of, big unintended allocations, is about 1.2 million. And so that's a really healthy fund balance. What we need to realize is that within that fund balance, we have some restricted funds in there. So we have the streets, and that's was budgeted at 177,000. It ended up being, we ended up getting more. So we have 185,000 in there. Trails, that is outside of the general fund. Oh, no, that's in the general fund because we had prioritized the perimeter trail and saved $25,000 for 2 years. So we still have that 20 or 50,000 in there. Buildings, we don't have anything set aside for buildings right now. And then in parks, we have 97,000, and that's through the Conservation Trust Fund, which is funded through the lottery and is separate from the general fund.
So the 97,000 is not in the one.
Correct. Correct. And I did not take that one out.
Yeah.
So what I had kind of predicted was at the end of this year, we would have somewhere around 108,000 going into the black for next year, and what we could do with that 100, we'll just call it 100,000 for now, going into next year. And that's where I identified, the buildings. So if you look at our capital improvements plan here, we have a few building renovations. One of the big ones is the Kendall roof replacement, which could be pushed off one more year. But looking at like our exterior stain, more lift upgrades, we're looking at a town hall exterior paint, roof and water damage repair. We're still working on that. And visitor center ADA ramp. So we do have options for grant funding in there, but it might be wise to put some money towards our buildings, and upkeeping our buildings. And then that's to say, like, if we have this contingency fund that's on top of all of that, then maybe we can do some allocations back into the community. But the timing on that is tricky because we do want to make sure we have audited financials. So it would more be in the middle of the year, kind of like the tourism fund currently does, like in June, where you would open up those requests and process those at that time based on the contingency fund that we all agree on would be, available at that time.
Yeah, so this is really a prioritized conversation. We have $100,000 potentially to spend. We could put it towards additional reserves. The auditor was definitely kind of like, yeah, you guys have done great, but you should put in more. We're like, yeah, but we have other things we want to spend money on. We're a tiny town. Or we could spend it on capital improvements for these various projects, or we could allocate it to certain community orgs, events, priorities.
Yes,
That's kind of what we're talking about here.
yes.
Or whatever else somebody thinks on the board is a priority.
Oh, I am still sharing my screen. Okay.
And this would be assuming that we can, basically fund our current budget, like this is in excess, and so we would be assuming that our current budget is funded through our other revenue sources.
And likely we'll see this number is higher next year, if we can stay within our current budget. But we won't know that until later on in the year. We can make predictions now, but really wanting to move this needle forward on our capital improvements.
I look at this capital improvements plan on page 13 and I'm like, there are really important things here in our assets that need money thrown at them over time. I also have the perspective that I think it could go a long way to somewhat fund some of our key community partners. And so I'm wondering what that balance looks like, but I often hear from people like, we need to take care of the stuff we have. We need to take care of the stuff we have.
Yeah, and I think, prevention, and like paint and roofs and such, when you do it when it's needed rather than waiting till it's catastrophic, you'll save money. So.
And so what I would potentially be doing is building in that $100,000 allocation into our new budget for in those capital improvement line items.
I think we need to fund some of these repairs, especially at town hall. We've been kicking the can down the road for a while. I mean, you walk into town hall and there's buckets collecting the water, like this is a special old building. I mean, Austin, Lashley and I were just talking about how much our community has to spend on taking care of our old buildings because they are important to our community. They are special and they're also very expensive. And so I think we have to put money towards them, and it's probably time to prioritize some of those. And I think Kendall as well, if we're increasing rates, it also needs to be a building that functions well.
And it creates revenue, right? So,
yeah. I would love to advocate even for a small amount. I'm just going to put it out there. I would love to give a couple $1,000s to Summer Sounds and the fireworks. I'm just going to put it out there. I would love if in some way we could fund those at a small level. I think those are both events and experiences that are really important to our community. And I think we could do both. We can allocate the majority of this funding to our assets that need to be taken care of and kind of extend some goodwill to our community partners. That'd be my advocacy, but we have a board of 7, so everybody can have a different opinion. I don't think we can fund any of those at the level we did in the past. I think we've kind of refigured some of those allocations, but I would love to still have some amount in our line item budget for both of those personally. I think we've seen them, both of those organizations really step up and really come through when we were really trying to contract our budget and plan for the future. And I think that was really commendable. And we've had amazing summer concert series. We've had a fantastic fireworks show. And so I just think it'd be a great way to add a little bit back into our budget to support those community partners. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, if we can do both, obviously, then again, just to echo you, Dana, not at the same level that we have previously, but I mean, if it helps them as well, right? If it's just a token and it's not helpful, then that's one thing. But if it's, you know, I think it probably is helpful, given the scale and the size of these programs. So I would support that.
Like maybe if we were to do, wait, what's the total? Oh, wait, let's see. Yeah. Right, the total of what you've proposed and recommended here exceeds, if we did the Kendall Mountain roof lot, it exceeds. If you didn't do the roof, that total is kind of close to the 100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious if we could do something like, could we do $10,000 to the ADA ramp as potentially a grant match? And then maybe 5,000 each to the organizations, but that's a more in the weeds discussion that we could have with the larger board, but.
Yeah, I wanted this to be a little high level on. This is-
Priorities.
Yeah, and we don't know it's 100,000 yet, but if that's where it landed, where would your priorities be? So that I could just start building the budget off of that assumption. It's a conservative assumption.
I think we need to fund some of these buildings, especially town hall.
Yeah, I think the building maintenance is really, really important.
And the Kendall lift upgrades, again, Kendall needs to be operating and safe. Is that something that's kind of like a must do this year?
I will have to talk to Grady about that.
Yes.
I know he's coming to do some more work on the lift here soon, so
Yeah.
that would be a conversation with Grady.
Yeah, that's what I'd be curious about. We put a good bit of money in it last year. We've gotten it to a good place, but we want to, to me, I'm sure Tyler feels the same for his team. We really want to make sure that lift works well and it's running people up the mountain. I think that's really important. And we've seen the chairlift, we've seen the revenue for that be strong the last year. So keeping that operational seems really important. But if we could defer that 1 year, then maybe it would give us a little wiggle room. So, but I don't know, overall philosophy, my priority would be put some of this money into the buildings that we've needed to work on for a while.
Jim?
I'm going to say something really unpopular, and that is number one, we don't invest in things that generate money. We just don't. We invest money into a lot of feel-good projects and a lot of things that make us happy and feel great, but that don't necessarily generate revenue for the things that we need for the town of Silverton. That's number one. Number two, the business of government is our facilities. They are our buildings. They are the utilities. That is the true function of government. And I think that's what we need to be focusing on more than anything else. You just said that we're having another price increase for utilities focused on water and sewer. On an already taxed population, that we're getting swamped. Our community is getting swamped with money. And I think we need to do a better job of reinvesting into things or investing in things that generate money to offset these astronomical costs that are affecting everybody in town. Not just one little segment, but everybody total. Again, not the popular thing to say, but that's what I think we should be doing.
Thanks for that, Jim. What does that look like to you? I mean, when it comes to the kinds of things that generate revenue for the town, that would be Kendall facilities, Mullis facilities. I mean, do you have other ideas where we can use that revenue to help offset the rates people are paying? And
I
the,
think it goes back to being creative, which we've done a great job and not, again, not a popular statement, but we're not in the business of funding feel-good projects. We're not. That's not what government is. And I think we, as a whole, not just Silverton, but we as a whole, we've gotten ourselves in this predicament of funding all these projects, state, local, federal, because the money's there. Denver just had to readjust their budgets of over $1 million because the money's not there anymore. I think we need to be more fiscal. I think we're doing a great job of being more fiscally responsible, but we need to reinvest in the facilities and the buildings and the people that make us revenue down the road, and not just all the things that are on the peripherals. And that's my opinion. Again, not a popular one, but that's my opinion.
thanks, Jim.
Okay, it sounds like there's general support for including some of these capital improvements in the next budget. And whatever the contingency fund is after that, evaluating how that would be spent.
Mhm. Mhm. And that's the summary you bring to the board, or we do it again in the finance committee meeting?
So this would be brought to you all in a draft version of the budget.
Great, yeah. Yeah, right, that gives you a.
Yeah, it just-
prioritization.
It does. It helps me kind of prioritize and include some of these capital improvement line items.
Mhm.
All right. So the next one is the next agenda memo you have in there is my plan for citizen engagement. So originally I had planned on let's see, it was going to be the 26th of August for the state of the town. Realizing the crunch there is that I won't be able to present it to the staff first. So I wanted to move that to September 9th. I looked at September 2nd, but that's right after Labor Day and I'm not sure we'll get the engagement. So wanted to try and move that one on to September 9th as a presentation in town hall. And then attending the Summer Sounds and I have a request in, so I don't know if that's been approved or not, but potentially have a table at Summer Sounds to talk through some of the information that I've outlined above. So that's talking through water meters, increase in water and sewer rates, capital improvements, and then kind of breaking down where all the funds go. Just to give that education to the community, and also letting them know, what our 2024 citizen survey had said, because we're not doing one this year, but we'll do one again next year because I wanted to do them every 2 years to kind of gauge for you all. And it's kind of difficult to get direct feedback that you all can utilize without like going out to the entire community. So what I'm really going to focus in on this engagement year is getting people to understand the budget and to show up to our hearings, which I want to do a month earlier than we actually adopt it. So that way people have that chance to be heard with their concerns to the board. And we have time to make any changes before December.
Yeah.
So really kind of changing the structure there. And then I hadn't talked to you about this, but potentially joining you for coffee with the mayor in October and November. And I've already talked to Kim about a farmer's market table in September. So this was kind of the ambitious citizen engagement that I wanted to do around the budget this year and wanted to get your all's thoughts or concerns.
I think it looks great if it feels doable. I think these all seem like the right places to hit. And I think people have been showing up. They've been showing up to the state of the town. They listen to it afterwards. I think we have pretty decent engagement with that opportunity. I won't be doing a coffee with the mayor in November because the date falls on like the week of Thanksgiving, but October would be
Okay.
great. I think that'd be a great focus because if people kind of would just want a more casual opportunity to come in with that, that'd be great.
Great. If there's anything additional that you guys think would be helpful too with the
Mhm.
community, I'm definitely open to that.
I think what you have now looks good, and it's already going to be, I feel like that'll also already be some extra time for you. So I don't have anything additional.
Okay.
I think, Jim, I'm still thinking about your kind of philosophical statement, and this is kind of what I think of going into budget season 2 is like, there's kind of two questions, right? There's sort of like, what does the community want? And that's varied, right? Different people want different things. They want us to prioritize funding in different ways. Different people would say you should spend it on this versus this. What are kind of the pressures that people are feeling that somehow the town has a role in? And then there's a component of like, what's in the best interest of the town and the community long term, right? What we want in the short term may not be what's in the best interest in the long term. And I think it's a kind of all a values discussion that we have when thinking about all of that, of where we allocate these fundings, because our budget is our biggest policy document that we make. It is the like implementation of our policy because it's where we put the funding, which means it's where we put the capacity and the stuff and the time. So yeah, even in thinking about kind of what you have here, Gloria, I keep thinking like, what's most important to our community and what's most important for the success of our community and our town. And I think, answering some of these questions is important. And at the end of the day, it's hard to live in a small community of 700 people when things cost a certain amount and there are all these outside pressures as well, and you have a certain amount of time to make your money. It's hard, and maybe we can all do a better job of sort of acknowledging that. Yeah. There's the reality, and then there's the pain of the reality and the opportunity of the reality. Jim, do you feel like we're missing anything else here in messaging or clarifying as we go into budgeting?
No. I mean, I have more opinions and thoughts, but it's already 10:30.
Well, thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it. And thank you for just being a collective brain and giving your guidance there, because starting the budget's always intimidating. Especially I have a brand new budget this year, which I can't wait to show you guys.
I was gonna say, you don't have ClearGov anymore.
I do not have ClearGov. It's a learning experience right now, but we'll get there. I think it's actually gonna be better in the long run. Just takes a little while. All right, so it's 10. Does anyone else have anything else to add for the good of the order?
Thanks, team.
All right. It's 10:32 and we'll adjourn this meeting.
Have a good day, guys.